Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, it's my privilege to be among you, the people who are actually sculpting the future of India, who are changing the minds of the young people into getting this country to take up the challenges what we have in the coming centuries. The product development is our topic today. Before we get into the actual of the seminar, there are a few things which I would like to take you through with. In our life, we have products in every sphere. We also see how rapidly and how fast this product development is taking place, especially in electronics, especially in the internet. We come across technology changing every month. It's really moving at such a hectic and rapid pace that until this businesses, institutes do not come up with a strategy for innovation, for invention, and taking this technology in the same pace, we'll be left behind. This is one of the core things today for our young generation, who are themselves very aware, very true to the commitment. They are extremely exposed to what the world has to offer. And if our country and the organizations in it have to really succeed, it is imperative that we also match the same speed what the world is moving at. This aspect of product development is not only limited to manufacturing. We know product development is a phase which can be in processes, it can be in strategy, it can be in businesses, it can be in trading, it can be in manufacturing, services. In each of this business, if we do not move at the right pace and we do not innovate and we do not invent, we will be left far behind. It's such an important aspect that today, to succeed in anything, we need to have the right kind of product development technologies and strategy in place for every organization. Organization can be even a school, it can be even a dhaba, it can be even a defense sector. From a needle to the spacecraft, innovation is moving and we need to move with it. So ladies and gentlemen, let me take you through the process of new product development. And first and foremost on our this thing is, what exactly is product development? Product development, as I've just completed in the last 5 minutes, can be the creation of a new product. It can also be the evolution of an existing product. So that we can offer new or additional facilities, additional features in an existing product or an entirely new product. Product development also involves modification. It involves both the aspects of invention and innovation. Invention, as we know, goes into creating an absolutely new thing, a new identity, a new entity. Innovation can be the commercialization and the stabilizing of such an idea to make it viable for commercial use, for people to move with it, and to satisfy the customers and their demands. The process of product development actually takes it through a cycle of strategy, of marketing, of organization, concept generation, marketing plan creation, and also evaluation and commercial new product. If you go through this, the entire thing moves at such a rapid pace that if our strategy is not correct, if the organization does not team together, if the concept generation is not proper, the marketing plan is not made, the evaluation of the technologies and how we have to make it doesn't take place properly, the commercialization of such a product is a failure. It is entirely with this in mind that we will take you through the entire process of product development. As we were just discussing, the two pillars of product development are invention and innovation. Invention is the first occurrence of an idea which comes into our mind, an idea which drives us to create something new. However, invention can never be commercialized, or the process of commercializing an invention is the process of innovation. The successful introduction, as the innovation says, of something new is what we call innovation. Innovation is the integral part of product development. We will have inventions, we will have innovations. However, each invention need not succeed into the market. There are numerous examples of inventions failing because they could not be commercialized. And there are numerous examples of existing products which, when they were innovated, became highly successful. We have moved from the Stone Ages, we have moved from the cart wheel, from the stone wheel, to the latest automobiles which run on flat tires. The wheel has come such a long way, and so has technology. Nothing is permanent in this world. And every day, every instant, somebody or the other today is thinking of innovating, of improving what we have with us. This is how innovation works for product development. We have examples of great ideas, some of which are now shown to you on the slide. They are inventions, but they have been innovated into products which we can commercially use, and they are of great help to today's world. The first example, which is the most common, is the light bulb. We moved from the tungsten incandescent light bulb to automobile lights, flashlights, LEDs, CFLs. This is all the process of innovation and improvement in an earlier invention which has taken place and which has helped humans all over the world in every way possible. Same as the example of stone wheels, or the wheel. When it was invented, it was just a stone wheel. The wheel has now metamorphosed into use for automobiles, motorcycle tires, cycle tires, and everything. And the shape and the construction is changing day by day to make it more efficient, more reliable. Run flats, today's high-end cars use, are wheels or tires which do not get punctured, which can still run 200 kilometers even if they are flat. So that is why they're called run flat tires. Nobody could have thought. We could have thought only that if it's a stone wheel or a solid rubber wheel, that is only when it will run, but it doesn't. It can still run. The final great example in front of you is communications. We started with the telephone. From the telephone, we have in our lives seen how it has changed and evolved to pagers, to cell phones, VSAT phones, which run just through satellites, and also smartphones now. And smartphones are evolving day by day. We have a new technology in smartphone every second month or every third month. The earlier technology becomes obsolete, and we are moving at a very fast pace in this. So these are very great ideas which have evolved into highly successful, highly viable, highly commercialized products. The entire process of product development is actually divided into 8 steps. The first and foremost is that we have to generate the idea. The idea has to be generated. Ideas have to be generated. In any successful organization, it is not only one single idea which is generated. To constantly evolve and constantly become successful, it is important that the employees, the management is continuously working towards generating more ideas. If we look into Samsung, if we look into iPhones, there is a huge team which is constantly working on evolution, on generating new ideas of what the market can get or what we can give to the market according to the customer's needs. How we can benefit the customer more, how we can make his life more easier. Example of how the phone has evolved into something of absolute use. In fact, one of the most important things, time, earlier used to be only connected with a wristwatch. The phone or the cell phone has made the wristwatch obsolete, or is in the process of making it obsolete. Watches will become extinct because the cell phone is doing 70% of your job and 100% of what a watch does. You have options of world times on your cell phone. You can get the time of anywhere, any part in the world, which your watch cannot give. It has a clock timer. It has stopwatches. It can give you temperatures. Anything and everything is possible with your phone. So that is how generating of ideas of what your product can do is what successful organizations work at. Generating ideas. Eventually, if an organization has generated ideas or people who are with it from the feedback from the customers, from marketing, from its own employees, the ideas which have been generated all will never work. We know it. It's a very difficult process. There are some ideas which will be just off the hat. They might not work at all. So then the next important step in product development is screening of these ideas. We need, or the team needs, to brainstorm and work together to know how many or what ideas out of this generation of ideas is really going to work. It will be dependent upon a lot of data, a lot of customer feedbacks, which the marketing will give. It will also depend upon what the competitors are doing, what the market is demanding. So when the screening takes place, a huge number of factors are taken into account, which will give you an idea of what ideas need to be worked at for the new product. Testing the concept. Testing the concept is another new one. You have to test the concepts into technologically, facility wise, what exactly can work for you. You have to see a concept which is viable technologically. It cannot involve something or a process which has never been tried before. You should have processes which can evolve into creating or using this concept. That's the third step. The fourth one is business analytics. Business analytics is the data which you get. It can be from marketing, as I said. The business analysis needs to be done. We need to think over the idea of what the total idea would generate in terms of commercial aspects, in terms of customer satisfaction, in terms of market value, and in terms of taking the organization on its goals. The fifth one is marketability tests. Now, this is something which product development will always work on. And there are a huge number of examples on what the market, whether this product will work in the market or not. I'll give you an example from a personal experience. There are different marketing tests which are done, whether the market will accept the product or not. If the example is in confectionery, the project that I was working with wanted to launch a new flavor in a bubble gum. Now, it's very easy saying that, okay, let's make a new flavor and launch it in the market. No, it depends upon the data that marketing has collected. It tries to see what customers like, and especially for something like confectionery, it is children. So they have to do a market analysis, a report, and complete data collection of what flavors are found better by children. What new flavor would they like to have? That's the first part. The other is that once the product is developed, or the sample or the prototype is developed for that, it has to be put into the market, and it has to go through the entire life cycle of seeing whether it can be successful or not. So when we talk of marketability tests, is whether this product at this price and with these qualities will really work in the market or not. Like the bubble gum, it has to be launched in a sample in different areas, and then the feedback from the customers has to be collected, from the distributors has to be collected. How many were sold? How many moved off the shelf at what rate? Whether there was acceptability of the product or not. So this is one side and one example which we see. The other one is a new product which you are developing, and the marketability tests are like, let's say, for an automobile. There's an example that Ford came out with a new automobile which was called Edsel in 1960s. Their marketing for this new product, marketing strategy was very different. They wanted to make the people feel that they are obliged to have this product, that they were being offered a product which nobody could have. And it would be a privilege if somebody had that car. It totally failed. Because market is not interested in feeling privileged about something. That is a very different niche segment. However, on the other hand, Ford itself had an old model of Mustang, which the marketing reports told them, and I'll show it to you in the slides coming in the future, to change the engine to a more powerful one which could accelerate much faster. And the younger generation at that time in the 70s in the US was looking for such a car. And they priced it so well that that sold nearly 50,000 units in 1 year. Now that's another part of being marketability. That's the test. We also go into technicalities and the product development process itself as a stage in the product development. How would you develop that? What processes would be involved? Whether the processes need to be fine-tuned? What would need to be changed? Some machine capabilities, capacities need to be changed into that. So those also become that. The seventh part is commercialization. Commercialization again depends upon the pricing, your cost of the product, how much does it cost you to produce it, and how viable it would become. And finally, the launch and the perfect pricing. The launch and the perfect pricing, sometimes people become greedy. The margins they built into their product is far ahead of the cost of production. Now, this is where a good marketing team, a good business strategic team at the top comes into play and places the product rightly at a price and launches it so that it is acceptable in the market. So let's go ahead. Now, the product development methodology, as I said, it's utilizing or generating ideas. The ideas can be generated, but it's not that somebody is sitting in the office and he's just generating an idea. As I told you that a lot of professional companies go into the process of SWOT analysis. A SWOT analysis, as it says, is the strength, weakness, opportunities, and the threats to any business or any product. A good, thoroughly professional marketing team or management will first do a SWOT analysis of the product that it wants to launch or the technology that it wants to get. Professional companies look into the aspect of what would be the strengths of my product. If I add certain features, if I add certain qualities into it, how would my product rate there? These would become the strengths. The opportunities that exist in the market for that product. Like we're talking of the phone, the opportunities. Somebody thought that the smartphone is a possibility. That was the opportunity in the market. You really need to generate the ideas with these things in mind. The weakness. If we change this, what can be the weakness? Is it too costly to produce? Will it take away a lot of our resources? How much time will be involved? If it is using excessive time, that's a weakness. Because most of the times, launching a product also is dependent upon how fast you can put it into the market. We have an example of Samsung. Samsung is launching one phone every 6 months. That's their rate in the smartphone market. The example is in front of you. They always tweak it, they add more features, and they launch a new phone. Now, if a new idea is generated and they take 3 years to launch that technology, in 3 years, the world will move from one end to the other. They will be left behind. So the weaknesses, as I was coming to in the SWOT analysis, need to be worked out, whether it will take too much time, whether the resources, the raw material is available or not, what would be the failure rates. So all this comes into weaknesses. The threat. Threat is something like what technologies the competitors are using. How fast are they moving? Whether they already have a team working at that on which you have just generated an idea. How much is the competition? What is the financial backing of your competitor? Whether the market will accept it or not. All these are threats that also go into the SWOT analysis. Now, once you have gone through the SWOT analysis, the ideas need to be generated on the basis of the SWOT analysis. The team works on that. A leaner process, a meaner process, something which does not use too much raw material, does not use too much of resources, is faster to turn around, is commercially viable, becomes the best product development strategy. Now, we come to product development, whether really product development is needed or not needed. This question although I'm asking, is self-answered, and I have been going on for the last 15-20 minutes of why an organization needs to get new products in the market. Even if we look at companies like who provide services, it's very, very important to evolve, to innovate, and to make the services better. There will be companies who are courier services. There are companies like e-retailing companies. The example is in front of you. When e-retailers like Flipkart came into the market, they did not have a policy of free return. They did not have a policy of checking the item which you were ordering. And that became a big block for the people. If somebody was not satisfied with the product, he was not sure how this product will be returned, whether my money will come back to me or not. Cash on delivery was never thought of. It was always that you have to pay upfront. Basically, e-retailers are just selling you virtually over the net. You didn't know about the product except for the photograph that you saw. So it was a big stumbling block. However, people like Amazon, they came in and they changed the whole concept of the e-retailing market. They brought out the concept of returns within 30 days. They also brought on the concept of cash on delivery. Now that means evolved and innovated on a service. It was not manufacturing. It was purely a service which they offered to the customer, a facility, which changed the whole ball game of the business. And now, not only Flipkart, 100% of the e-retailers work on free returns within a stipulated time. Your money will be returned. You can check the product before taking a delivery, and everything is there. The consumption, or let's say the buying of items on the internet, has grown by more than 300 times. People are buying clothes. There are Mantra and all are selling shoes on internet. It's purely a service. And the service industry is moving like that. If we go into another example of how, not manufacturing, I'm just taking you to examples which are connected to businesses. In the clothes industry, when you used to go to a shop, there was nothing called returns. They will have written no return. Returns will not be allowed. Please check the garment. You could try it and you could take it. But people and players like Zara have moved into India, and they have opened the concept of you can return the item anytime you want to and exchange it. It's not even necessary to exchange it. Indian manufacturers and retailers of clothes were stuck upon that you can only exchange it with another cloth, which is now changing because Zara has come out with this concept that you can not only exchange it, you can even return it and take your money back. So business, this is evolution. And this is also a new product of marketing strategy, a product of how you want to conduct your business, your processes. All this goes into product development. So let's not limit ourselves to product development only connected to business manufacturing, how a component is made, or how a new product like a car or a cell phone. We need to broaden the process, and every business, whether it is e-retailing, a service provider like a maintenance company, even a service provider like Mahindra First. Mahindra First does car servicing, but it has come out with a new concept. It can give you original parts in your cars, any model you can bring there. You do not need to take, if you have a Hyundai or if you have a Fiat, you don't need to go to the Fiat workshop. You might find that more expensive. Mahindra First has come up with a technology or with an offer where they service all types of cars with original parts. Now, this is another example of product development. They have developed the servicing product. They are offering you a new evolution in servicing of cars. That's how the whole thing is working. So it's very important not to limit our minds and not to limit our thinking philosophy only to saying that, okay, this can be done in manufacturing, or what new we can produce, how new thing can be made. It's not limited to that. It can be limited to everything. So let's come to the product development needs and advantages, which we are already there. The new product introductions can help many firms overcome the slow growth. There are companies which could have been working very well, but their profitability and their growth is slowly going down because their products are in the market for a very long time. People are using it. They are getting more options. So What do they do? The new product ideology works here. And the examples are Sony, Samsung, Panasonic. The examples are TVs. Sony and Samsung and even Panasonic were one of the most successful companies in televisions. The big box television that we used to have in our home, okay, they evolved from smaller sizes to bigger sizes. It became bulkier. You could not find a table where you could fix it. And eventually the whole market demand started tapering off. A new technology had to be brought in. And that is where they worked. Now we have 2 inches thick flat screen TVs. We have the new evolution coming in, which is smart TVs. And because the business was getting stagnant, people were getting used to that and they did not have a choice. The whole market was dwindling. And that is where product development came in, and they worked on a product which has again given them such a big boost that you can see the sales of LCDs and LED TVs. It's mind-boggling. New products may be able to use many of the same raw material. It's important that when you do new product development, that you are able to use many of the raw materials that you're using, many of the processes that you're already using, because that will cut down your production costs. That will cut down the cost of production of a new product. Now, what are the examples for this? If you really look, Suzuki was the first one to start it. Now, if you look into the market and if you're very, very clear, Volkswagen, Skoda, Audi, everybody has started doing the same thing. If you look at models of Volkswagen, Polo, Vento, Passat, the basic raw material, I'm not talking of steel. I'm sorry, it's not of steel. If you look at their lights, if you look at their rear view mirrors, if you look at their tail lights, if you look at their other accessories, they are the same in all the cars. In fact, sometimes if you look at a Polo from the front and if you look at a Vento, you do not make the difference because the bonnet, the lights, front lights, the grille and everything is the same. So what has the automobile company done? It has cut down raw material and resource costs to evolve into a new model, which it is offering you with a minimal buildup of cost in materials, in resources, and in production. Nissan Terrano and Duster, Renault Duster, are made in the same plant. Here what has happened is 2 businesses have synergized their processes. Their entire plant is the same. On the same line, Nissan Terrano is made, and on the same line, Renault Duster is made. Only the outer shape is different. The engines are the same, the lights are the same, the interiors, everything internal is the same. It's an outside body concept that they have changed. There are 2 different emblems on the cars. The pricing is slightly different so that they don't cut into each other's market, but the cars or the vehicles are the same, being built on the same lines. What have they done? They have essentially cut down costs on all processes and offering you 2 different variants with no additional cost. Otherwise, they would have had to add another new line, a different set of vendors. The same vendors come in, everything happens the same way. New product development can also be important to leverage a firm. Now, leverage a firm means if you are able to give new products and bring out new innovations, you're able to control the distributor network. The more products a distributor will have to offer to a customer, he knows that his sale is going to grow. And he will obviously be inclined for his business towards a company which gives you more products, and more products faster. The example is Nestle or Frito-Lay's. Frito-Lay's started with 2 chips, different types of snacks, and now has approximately 20 different types of snacks being offered. They are also being competed heavily by Haldiram, who earlier used to be just a bhujia manufacturer. But now Haldiram is into, again, chips, snacks, and every other thing. And the way they have manipulated the products, the way the number of offerings, the kind of offering that it is giving in the bouquet, is so much that a distributor feels kind of privileged to keep their products on the counter. You also go and look at a shop where at least 20 different types of snacks in the sense chips and others are hanging on a shelf. You will not go to a distributor or a retailer who has two different types only. So a new product development or development of products or evolving it into different varieties, which is also a part of product development, gives a huge leverage not only to the retailer, but also to the business which is offering it. Because the business guy or the retailer starts giving more preference to this manufacturer. His sales double up or even triple up. So that's how the whole system works. And that is where new product development advantages come in. New product development is a dispersed and an integrated process. Now, how do we say it's a dispersed and integrated process? These are two different things. Or sometimes somebody might say it is a contradictory thing, that it's dispersed and it is integrated. Dispersion means variety. Now, product development can start or can be better for companies which take feedback and can take reviews or inputs from multiple departments, from multiple sources. The sources can be according to internal departments. The sources can be according to the marketing, where it has a variety of customers to whom it is supplying and it takes feedback from that. The sources can also be for doing this if the company has multiple location plants. So it will get feedback from multiple plants of what exactly is the shortcoming or what would they like to do new. So it becomes a dispersed process. The more dispersed the process is, the better feedback or the more detailed feedback it will have to start working on a new idea. You can yourself think that if you are alone thinking about it, we always say that 3 heads are better than single. If there is a group working in each and every different factory of a manufacturer, and if there are multiple customers who are being talked about by the marketing team all over the world, then you get feedback and you get inputs on the product and what new is required by the customer from a very dispersed strata of people all over the world. The same on integrated means that other than the inputs from outside, what we should be doing is also taking an integral approach. Your own employees, your own manufacturing team has to be a part of this process where you take inputs and start doing an NPD to thinking of what new product can be done. The interaction also between finance, between production, between marketing, which is called integral, is also very, very important. Because unless these teams do not work as a complete cohesive unit, the end product can most probably be a failure. The technical team needs to support in terms of processes. The marketing team has to give the right inputs and the feedback from the market. The commercial team has to work very carefully on what are the commercial aspects of the whole process, whether it is going to be viable or not, where the cost needs to be cut. And that is how the whole process needs to work together integrally for this whole system to work for a good new product development. So as the final point says, the process clearly benefits from the inputs gathered from outside the organization. Key customers, important competitors, strategic partners, and principal suppliers, other than the internal team working completely as a cohesive unit of technical production, marketing, and finance. So when we talk about different factors, we also look at what other factors would be for successful product development. We have talked about the teams need to work as cohesively. We need to get feedback. We need to generate ideas. We need to screen the ideas. But eventually, for any organization, there are two very, very important things which have to work for a successful product development. One is the cost management. The cost management is the customer should benefit. We know it, that whatever you're offering to the customer, he needs to benefit from whatever new features, whatever new quality, or whatever new you are giving to the product and to the customer. The customer should benefit, but it should not be at the cost of the cost going off of the product to such a high that it becomes unviable. The production cost needs to be kept in line, and the accounts and the cost management has to be done, that it needs to be prudent, it needs to be workable for the organization not to suffer a loss just to give or satisfy a customer. The other is market values. The customer, as we said, is the king. There are market values, there are market demands which need to be kept in place. So the two important things that come into mind, as I was telling you, one is the cost management, which has to be beneficial to the company. The other is the market values of what features and what benefits you're going to deliver. So sometimes what also happens is in a process of doing things very fast, we overlook certain features and certain quality that we want to deliver to the market. That should never be the place, because these two things, cost management and market values, are very, very important in making a new product successful in the market. Also coming into this, when we go into details of what exactly is the process of making it successful, the NPD process can be successful if the customer needs and aspirations are met, which we just talked about, market values, and the second is the market values. Market values are the customer needs and aspirations. The second is technology. Obviously, you have to offer some new technology. You can't be giving a technology which is 50 years old. So what is the technology involved in it, even for production and even what you're offering? The third is competitors. You have to keep in mind, for a good, successful product development or product launch, is that the competitors need to be kept in mind, which we also talked about in the SWOT analysis. The competitors, what they're offering, what they are not offering, what exactly are the shortcomings in their product, which we have to look for and launch a product which takes care and gives us an edge. And finally are the suppliers. The suppliers, whether they'll be able to supply us at the right cost, whether they'll be able to supply us at the right time, and whether they will be able to support us in this new product development. So these are also factors in the successful product development. Now, once we go into the details, what we had just talked about, there are some examples that I would like to put in front of you. Customer needs. As I said, the example I had given earlier in my thing only, Ford Mustang was a car which was launched with a new V8 engine just for the young generation. At that time in the 70s, America was going through a process in which the younger generation didn't have anything for itself. And the first thing they latched onto was a car priced very correctly with a powerful engine which was meant for the younger generation. And as I told you, this sold more than 50,000 units in 1 year. The second successful product development at that time, or in late 70s and early 80s, was the Dodge Caravan. America didn't have a vehicle or an automobile in which the whole family could travel. They had limousines, they had sedans, but nothing which a family could think that we can go for an outing and still use this, and also which can carry the entire family with everything. The Dodge Caravan was a product which evolved out of the process, and it was made with one view in mind, that it can carry the entire family, it can carry their entire luggage, and also was designed in a way that it could not take a lot of outer space in parking, but still, you'll be surprised to hear, carry a 8 feet by 4 feet wooden board inside, which was the norm, that families, when they wanted to get something from the market, even if they had to take a cardboard or something which was 8 feet by 4 feet, they had to put it on the roof of the car or carry it in some truck. So the Dodge Caravan was designed with this thing in mind, and it was highly successful example of a product which was took customer needs into account. Technology and competitors, the second factor that we were talking of. The examples for technology, smart watches. We had watches, then we got smart watches. Now we have excessively smart watches. The smart watch was something which could tell you the time and also tell you maybe that you are getting a message in your cell phone. That was added. Then you could get other information on the cell phone. You could cut the phone, you could see the numbers. Otherwise, just the ring was telling you. So this was an evolution. And I'll show you in the next slide what the smartwatches are coming to. In this example of smartwatches is also that in the watches there is a GPS. It can sometimes even on a golf course tell you what is the distance on your golf course. So these are all examples of technology which in the product development they've taken into account, and they're selling like anything, and this is a highly successful thing. Car play and navigation. This is an example of technology again, but also of competitors being taken into account. The cars that first came out with CarPlay were just purely digital or digital display music systems. The music systems evolved to touchscreen music systems. Successful companies also evolved this whole display into a navigation system as well as a music system. Presently, all cars, all competitors, if they need to survive in the market, have to give cars which does not have only a music system playing on the touch screen, but also larger displays, navigation built in, GPS built in, and a lot of information which comes there of the car. So these are two examples of new products or products which were developed to be put into the major product to make it more successful, to take competition and technology to a new front. Now we come finally to beating the competition. Now beating the competition is what we are seeing is happening in the world everywhere. We are getting self-drive cars with artificial intelligence interface. Google has come out with a self-drive car. It's an automated car. You don't have to drive it. It drives by itself. Their Tesla is with a huge display, automatic artificial intelligence interface display, where everything of the vehicle you can have on the touch screen. Parking is done automatically. Going out of parking is done automatically. Even alarms and all the technology is available for getting troubleshooting of the car done each at the time when you want it. Beating the competition is also on technology, on how the future smartwatch, as I was telling you, will come onto. The displays are projected on the watch. You could see it only on the watch. Now the watch will be like a projector, which can display the data onto a screen, onto your dashboard, or even on your hand. There are thin film projection systems available right now, which are being developed by companies, which can give you touch screen on your hand through a very thin film, which will be attached. So going into product development is very easy. We know that it is needed. We know that it is required. It's an essential part for any organization to be successful. It is also essential for customer needs to be met, for our resources to improve, and to move into a process where, the whole manufacturing or the whole product development is moving towards achieving the company's goals, achieving what the company wants to reach at, and also beating the competitors. But the new product development cycle is also fraught with a danger of failure. Not all new product developments work successfully. You'll be surprised that 30 to 35% of new products are a failure in the market, which are just a change of the earlier one. It is not even a new product. If you're launching a new product, then the failure rate goes up to 50 or 55%. Now, there are pitfalls that why new products fail. There are reasons, but we need to guard ourselves against a lot of issues which make a new product fail. These are the pitfalls which we will discuss and which we will talk about of how new products should be avoided for failure. The main point which comes into new product failure is actually that the company loses resources, the company loses finance, it loses face, and also a very important aspect of capturing the market and beating the competition, it loses out on. So we'll give you some examples of actual product failures which took place which the companies were not able to foresee. The new product development and innovation teams were not able to predict and work at, in spite of the information coming back from the customers in the market. BlackBerry is a very big example of a product failure. It was a highly successful phone at one time. Most of the people, like they want an iPhone now, wanted to have a BlackBerry. It had encrypted system for its messages. You could not break into it. There was BlackBerry pins, which were making it very secure. Everything was in place. However, the rate and the pace at which the entire phone market was moving, BlackBerry was not able to see it. BlackBerry was not able to foresee that the smartphone market was moving onto touch screens. BlackBerry was not able to see and also gauge that the keyboard that it had of very small buttons was no longer the preferred system to be used by customers, and people would move away from it, which they were finding very difficult. And just one technology of saying that, oh, we have encrypted messages, we have a PIN system, did not save the company. BlackBerry failed totally as soon as the smartphone market evolved onto touch screens and bigger displays. So the product development team or the management team needs to really work at keeping pace with how the market is evolving. We need to keep pace at what the customer needs. That's one example which I want to give you. Betamax is another example of a very classic product failure. Betamax was a competition to VHS. Now, VHS, as we know, or if most of you want to know, was one of the video cassette manufacturers. At one time, video cassette recorders and players were the in thing. Like today, we have DVD players and Blu-rays and other things. So Betamax, in spite of being a better technology, was not able to work into competition with VHS because it did not take a lot of customer factors into account. And Betamax proprietary, because it wanted to remain proprietary. Betamax was trying to remain proprietary in the sense that all the technology they wanted themselves, and they wanted you to pay a fees for using it, which VHS was not going to ask. And VHS made its technology open to everybody. You just had to buy a VHS recorder and start using the tape. And that is how Betamax lost out. Xerox was, you'll be surprised to know, that was the first personal computer. They made the first personal computer in 1973. But because of bad marketing strategy and not trying to convince people, and also why this failed, we'll come to later also. There was another reason for it. But essentially for Xerox, it was a very bad marketing strategic campaign, which they were not able to sell personal computers, which later on became such a huge success from Hewlett-Packard, from Apple and everybody. And Xerox was not able to do anything on it. So they did not foresee or do not do much on competitive marketing and on marketing. The next example in this failure of products is Nintendo. I don't know how many of you are aware, but Nintendo is a game manufacturer. It is one of the biggest game manufacturer companies in the world from Japan. Nintendo had a lot of games on the PCs which used to run. So they tried to come out with a virtual box which you had to put on your head to play. So it could give you virtual images. And at that time, it was something which could not be foreseen into the future. They had a technology of the future to give to the customer, but they did not look at a lot of aspects. The cost factor, as we said, it has to be commercially viable. If you're getting a Nintendo virtual box to put on your head at a cost of $1,000, it was too much. Even they brought it down to $400, it was still too much. It was bulky. A person could not keep it strapped for more than 5 minutes. So the customer needs, how the customer would feel with it, those were not taken into account. They just thought that we are going to give them a gaming experience of virtual 3D, this thing, so it will sell. It didn't. Nintendo lost a huge amount and nearly went bankrupt because of the virtual box. DVDs, HD DVDs. Now, this is another example of a product failure. When DVDs were in the market and they were a hit, DVD manufacturers thought that we will now get into this thing and we'll start giving them HD DVDs. The HD DVD was partially successful, but it was not successful because Blu-ray by the time had come into the European and the American market, and Blu-ray was giving you that technology in their players at a much better commercial value, and also a higher technology which the DVD could not. And it was cumbersome carrying 20 HD DVDs with you in a box from one place to the other if you wanted to travel, or if in the home also you had to have a whole cassette player in which you need to keep them. And the Blu-ray was something which started changing it. Even on the internet now, Blu-ray has its own streaming movies which are done in Blu-ray, and it's a success. So this was another example for product failure, not this thing. The product development, which we were just talking about a little while earlier, has different steps, and the steps that we also talked about also had generation, screening, technology, seeing the processes, marketing strategy, commercial, and then the final launch. This can be put up in a product development funnel. If we see it, this gives you a very correct example of how the whole product development cycle has to move. The first part of the funnel, which is on your left, is the opportunity identification and idea generation. So if you see the number of circles in this is the number of product concepts in development that will come up, the ideas which are generated by any company or its employees, or the feedback from the customers and everything. Sorry, this need not work on the same volume. Once it starts moving through the funnel, you'll see that if you're looking at the green circles, then they from 4 are becoming 3. From 3, they've become 2 at design and engineering of products, and then on prototype, only 1. The idea which it gives you here very clearly in this funnel is that the number of ideas which are generated, once they get into product and concept into concept testing, will screen down. This is called screening, and this is where you see the viability of whether this concept will work, whether this concept will really commercially be viable, whether the processes will support it or not. So the concept testing comes here, and that is how it filters down and screens the number of ideas to this quantity. Then you come into design and engineering of the product, whether the designing and engineering of the product will be viable, whether it will be technologically possible, whether the resources that we use, the same resources will be used, we can minimize the use of new resources, how we can tweak only the processes, whether new processes will be involved. All that will again screen down and bring down this funnel and start reducing the number of ideas to the actual ones which can only be engineered in your company or organization. If we go for unviable or unengineerable solutions, this is where the product will also fail. Once the design and engineering of the product is done, then we go into the prototype development and the samples. The prototype development is done at a smaller scale. The testing is done. And once the testing and prototype is successful, then it moves into the commercial aspect, the commercialization. Commercialization has to be mass production. It also has to see the time frame in which the mass production will be possible, the rejection rates, whether they will not go up or whether they can be kept within the allowable units or not. So that is how the product development and testing will move through the development funnel. One of the examples that I would like to share here, which we sometimes also comes into product failure, is the 2 aspects that when I talk to you about is that at the altar of product quality or the requirements, we should not sacrifice time. So there is a time for every product to be launched. If we will be delayed in launching the product on time, then that product becomes unviable or it doesn't become useful to this. The example that I would like to give you here is one main one, which is connected to our defense. In 1979 and 1981, the DRDO, or the Defense Research and Development Organization, came up with the idea of a main battle tank for Indian Army. The Indian Army was supposed to be given a main battle tank, which was to be developed by the DRDO. They kept working on it for 20 years. They were not able to develop a main battle tank for the army. So conveniently, they named it FBT from MBT. FBT is the future battle tank, because they had already lost 20 years. and it became a future tank. You'll be surprised that today that tank has been developed, but it is so much behind technology. It is extremely heavy. It cannot move at the speed at which today's war takes place, again, because of its bulkiness and the heaviness. Its armor is too thick. Its gun still has to be imported. We do not have an Indian built gun on it. So overall, that project is a failure. Our army does not have the main battle tank or the future battle tank, which they named Arjun, in its squadrons in the army, because they have failed on it on both accounts: the cost of producing it and the time in which it was supposed to be produced. That was a very big example of something not being done on time and as per requirement. So there are examples, and you will feel that product development also in your own life. You will see a lot of products. Everybody is highly exposed to the internet and to the world of technology today. There will be thousands of products in front of you, and you will yourself, once you start thinking about where this product has failed or what happened to this product, you will really get into a new product development, what it requires, what makes it successful, how bad products or bad planning make a product fail. It can even make a good product fail. So these are examples which will be in front of you in your whole life, and that is what we are discussing. And that is how we'll come into the practical aspects, and you will also feel that, yes, if the NPD process would have been followed diligently and in the right way, the product could have really worked, and we would not have so many failures in the products. So we come to the most important aspect of new product development. Now, we are coming to the most important aspect, which is the unmet customer needs. The new product, to make it highly successful, has to first and foremost get into the unmet customer needs. The customer needs need to be met. It needs to work on the customer's requirements. If the customer, it does not meet customer needs, then the new product will fail. Who does want to buy a new product which does not meet his requirements? You will not buy a fan if you need an air conditioner. So the product has to meet your needs. If you want to get your room to a temperature of 20 degrees, a fan will never work. So you will not buy a fan for that. That is exactly where new products has to take into account the customer needs, and it has to, with the NPD team's idea of working out clearly with defined goals from marketing and from the customers of what exactly is the customer need, what do we need to meet, and that the customer need can be in quality, can be in features, can be in cost. So it has to meet all of these to be successful. And when we work for a new product, there are factors which also help in the new product being accepted or adoption. Somewhere we can call it adoption of the new product into the market or with the customer, or we can say the acceptance of the product. Now, if we'll go into the depth of all of these factors, you will yourself feel, I'll give you some examples also along with this, of how a new product has to be adopted faster. What do we have to do? So the greater the relative advantage of innovation. So if an innovative product has been launched, so the relative advantage we need to see. Relative advantage means the product which is being innovated over the product which was there earlier. There has to be a relative advantage. If I give you a watch, you are already wearing a watch which has minutes in second hands, and if I just make another watch which is not golden in color, which is silver in color, you might not buy it because it is still giving you the same features. Or if I just add one more needle in it, you will say, I don't need it and I will not spend money for this. So the product will fail. It has to show a relative advantage. The relative advantage was something like over BlackBerry, the example that we gave, the smartphone, touch screen. It was easier to operate, interface was easier, it was easier for the customer to understand what was written. So the relative advantage of the product needs to be seen, and that will make it adoption and acceptance by the customer much faster. In the same way, the greater the complexity, if you're launching a new product which is highly complex, the acceptance in the market and with the customer, the adoption will be slower. The example is in front of us right now. We know that personal computers, laptops are everywhere. But once the first computer was launched in the market, the people were so afraid of the product because it was highly complex for them. They had never used something like that. So the adoption or the acceptability of a personal computer was very slow. It nearly took more than 2 to 3 years to be accepted. And very few people bought personal computers because they were comfortable with it. Otherwise, most of the people were uncomfortable with the technology of a personal computer. The programming language which was being used, people were not aware. So once the whole thing of the structure and the system in the personal computer was made easier and user friendly, that is when the acceptance started becoming better. So that is when we say complexity plays a very big part in acceptability. So higher the complex the item is, the slower will be the adoption. The greater the compatibility of innovation, when we talk of this innovative new product, the more the compatibility, the more will be the acceptance, the faster will be acceptance. Like if we take an example for compatibility, the CD player was a slower compatibility. People didn't know that it will be compatible with what. They didn't find that compatibility of the product with their systems. They were very comfortable with working with cassettes and other things. So the CD thing, or to buy a new CD player, it became a little compatible issue. The systems with which they wanted to work, it was not there. The example which is there is the fax machine. The fax machine was accepted very, very fast into the system because all it needed was that your telephone wire needed to be plugged into it and the electrical power needed to be plugged in, and it started working. There was no compatibility issues that you did not have to change your wiring, you did not have to change a lot of things or buy new things to make it compatible to get into the system. So the compatibility, the easier or the faster the compatibility is, the faster it will be adopted. The greater the communicability or how the product is communicated to the public, to the customer. Internet and cell phones are a great example of how fast they were taken up, because internet was something which people said can give me a lot of information. They were already into computers, and internet became a thing which could communicate much more data, much more information to them at a much faster rate. So it was accepted much faster. It was taken up much faster. The rate of adoption was faster. The greater the divisibility of an innovation, the faster its rate. Now, divisibility means how many customers are able to use that product for the first time and give information to others to use it. One example was AOL. AOL was a player who came out with the internet search engine and others, where also they gave AOL system disks free to customers. They gave thousands of disks free for use so that you use it and then build your own judgment of how you want to use AOL products and AOL search engines. This worked a great deal and AOL became a huge success. So divisibility, or how many systems you're able to put into the market with for the people to use and to feel free about, helps a lot into the product being adopted by the market. Now, new product development, we have gone through the steps, we have gone through the procedures, we have gone through the requirements, the advantages, the disadvantages. We have also gone through pitfalls of how the products can fail, what we need to be this thing about. There are also certain challenges which come up with new product developments. The challenges are mostly on organizational front. The organizational issues which come up when a new product is launched. People have a resistance to change. When you are developing a product, the people working in the organization are so used to working in the same way and using the same product that they are hesitant into switching to something new. They are hesitant in working with something new, a new process, a new technology. So they themselves try to step back and not really take full credit into it. Sometimes in manufacturing units, there are incentives and there are bonuses built into manufacturing of components. Now, if you are trying to build in something new, they think, oh, if this is a new product, our speeds will go down, maybe our incentives will be affected, my salary will be affected. So the hesitation becomes a factor for people working in an organization. The same way marketing, it says, okay, this new product has been decided. Now all the blame or all the load will come onto marketing to market this product. Although we have the market's feedback, but the whole load and the process will be the reason for marketing to perform, to show results that this product could be sold. The organization has to develop the capability and capacity to adapt quickly and to work as a team to make a product successful. If the team does not work and adapt to changes, and the organization is not able to build these changes into making people more free and building people more comfortable working with them, new product development will suffer. It will also affect the time frame of turnaround of a new product. So these are some organizational issues which always will challenge. What is the future of NPD? New product development is actually the requirement of the century. Today, we are moving, as I said, at such a fast rate that companies who are not able to get new products at a faster rate into the market, we will not be able to survive. The world is moving at a higher pace. It's more global. In India, if we say today that companies need to survive, they do not need to survive just for the Indian market. It's a global race. There are companies from abroad which are moving at a much faster rate. Their technologies are evolving at a much faster rate. And they are bringing out products at a much faster rate. If our companies do not take up these challenges and we are not able to evolve and get our systems, procedures, processes, and development of new products in tune with the requirements of the coming times, the companies will suffer, the companies will fail. So new product, and specifically new product development innovation, is the call of the hour. And this is where everybody has to work as a team in the organization to make the product faster, to get it turned around faster, and to bring it in the market to keep ahead of the competition. Otherwise, it's a losing race. It's a global market. It's not only limited to the country. It's not only limited to one region. You have, in spite of whatever barriers the government might create, people are traveling far more, people are exposed to technology far more, and technology is available at a faster pace and much more easily as compared to earlier times. So each organization has to work to a new product development phase in which it is able to keep pace with the changing structure in the world and to compete with the world people. Thank you.